Yeah, hell yeah, guys. I'll start by telling you all the difference between a scuba and a spearfishing knife. And basically the only difference, for the most part, right, is that the scuba knives have these little pieces of stainless steel at the end. What they do is they'll just bang these on the tank to go ahead and get like the person's attention or whatever. So other than that, there's basically not too much difference between a scuba and a spearfishing knife. This is another form of knife that I've used for fishing. This is a Moro, and it's going to be hard to tell from there, but there's basically some rust forming right here, right at the weakest part where the blade and the handle meet. So these are actually, even though these are wonderful, good knives, these are not great for being in the water, because I had this one in the lake only a few times. It's already starting to rust a little bit. So yeah, these are not great, but they cut very good. But eventually, yeah, this thing will crap out. So basically, the other type of thing I want to talk about today is the different ways that the knives will secure into the sheath, right? Usually on the scuba knives, this is actually a really good example though. This is a above average scuba. There's actually a push button here. So this would actually be good for spearfishing, just a little bit heavy. But the other thing about a spearfishing knife was, again, this would make a pretty decent one, is that you can see that the very middle, down the middle of the blade, right, there's a point. So this point is what you use to brain your fish with. So this thing would actually work like really quite nicely, but it's just, this thing might need to get replaced with a piece of plastic or something. It's a little bit heavy. So a dedicated spearfishing knife is going to be like this Omer, I believe this is a mini laser, you can just check it out. And this thing attaches usually on the arm. What you'll do is you'll just go ahead and push these two buttons right here, pull the knife out, and go ahead and stone your fish, and then that'll be it. That's one of the uses for the knives. The other use is to cut yourself out of danger. So say you get caught up in a float line, something like that. Well, your own float line or fishing net or anything, that's gonna be extremely dangerous. So what they go and use the knife for is, part of it is for braining the fish, and then part of it is for cutting yourself out. From my experience, what I noticed, almost any knife will work pretty good to dispatch the fish. So what I mostly look for in a dive knife, and when I worry about tangled up in something, because that's a far bigger threat, you can always figure out a way to stone the fish, right? But you don't want to be underwater without, and running out of breath. So what happens is then on knives, this is something I haven't heard anyone talk about yet, is on knives, basically for cutting, what happens is a very thin knife like this is a frost cutlery, this is a dive knife. And basically what ends up happening is that the thinner blade, where the thing tapers the most, right? You got a nice thin blade and it tapers a lot. What's gonna happen is you're gonna be able to get a really, really fine edge on there. And yeah, so it will actually work better for cutting something. If you think about it, it's like a razor is really thin and it cuts very good, right? So you always got to make is, well, there's several compromises. There's price, there's lots of stuff, but how well it actually cuts. Because what I found is almost any knife will stone a fish. So this is my basic grade right here. This goes on my weight belt, and these just attach just by pushing in. Right, it won't come out until you pull it out. And my basic setup is I had two of them. These are really light. They don't weigh hardly anything, and they're cheap. There was I think 12 bucks each. So I just have two of these attached on my weight belt, and this way I can access it with either hand. So if I was to get caught up in something, I can use my other hand, pull out the knife, and then go ahead and just hopefully cut myself sharp it is. So if you're always using your knife to cut something, you're cutting chum, you're doing this, you're doing that, well, that's nice and everything, but then what ends up happening is if you forget to sharpen it, now you're going in the water with a dull knife, and things like Dyneema, Spectrum, various things like that, they're very difficult to cut. So if you're stuck, if you get yourself tangled up and you got a rusty knife or something like that, it's just not very sharp, well then now you could be in more danger. So I actually recommend, this is my rig, okay, I got two knives, right? But I recommend another knife entirely to say descale the fish, or if I was going to cut it early or do something like that. And then that way I got my 2 knives that in the primary purpose, yeah, because almost any knife is gonna stun a fish, but the primary purpose is to cut myself out of danger. So I got 2 of those. These are very light, very affordable. I think these are great knives. This is what I use. And yeah, so that's about it for dive knives. Let's see if I got everything. Yeah, I got everything. So my next video, guys, is gonna be, I'm gonna show you about a couple different spear guns, and I hope you guys like that one.